We had a gentleman come in over the weekend who had about 10 guitars for us to work on. Now, they are all of one brand, and it got us sort of thinking, because they needed a lot of work. They were Harley Bentons, and like we've played some Harley Bentons that are epically in great shape, but that's not the rub of it. When we gave him like the sort of total bill for what it's going to cost to fix them all, and he's like, "Yeah, I got to do it." It was pretty hefty.
Yeah, sure.
It's and it's led us to believe that you know, what did you say? You're rolling the dice.
You roll the dice. You don't know. Maybe you get a fantastic Harley Benton. Maybe you pay almost what you paid for the guitar to make it playable.
Yeah, it's like, and it's the old homage of buy once, cry once thing.
Right.
But then we started, and like, but we're not guitar leads, because I have a Squire that I play the living bejesus out of still.
Yeah, it's true.
And we know some Squire players out there that crush it.
There are some
that young,
pretty high profile folks.
Yeah, that young man that taught Sir John Mayer.
Tomo
Crushes a Squire, correct?
He does.
But it is, there's something about someone, I don't know, it's weird. It's like a guitar company, I'm not saying Harley, but there are a lot out there that are built just to build like the cheapest possible way, but not always the highest quality.
Sure.
So it's the idea is like the highest quality, but it can't possibly be that, unfortunately. It takes time and unfortunately dollars sometimes.
Let's take dollars.
It's weird. I mean, like, well, yeah, what are your thoughts here?
I mean, it is funny that you, like, just what you just said about, you know, people buy these things and you're like, oh, it's the highest quality, but it's such a cheap price. But things like quality control, someone has to look at a piece of gear and decide that it's okay, and, you know, will it intonate, and is the neck not warped, and all these things. And even if you spend money doing that, and it's, you know, maybe it's dirt cheap because maybe it's in a place where maybe they don't pay people very much money, still doesn't matter if that person doesn't know what a guitar should be.
Well, and that's jumping into like a world economic sort of structure. Yeah. Where do you want your dollars to go? Do you want it to go to supporting like a local industry, like American, British, European, or do you want it to go to support like, you know, a foreign grouping that obviously does not pay its employees a standard of what we're accustomed to or used to? But then you'd be like, well, it's developing a middle class from a lower class, so it's rising a group up. It takes a generation or two to do that. I understand a little bit of economics, but you have to decide, like, you know, do you want to support A or B? Right. That's one simple. But, you know, at the same point, let's jump back to quality. Yep. And let's jump back to like things like quality and magic. You know, magic's one thing. Let's do quality first. Because even some of the major players, from PRS to Fender to Gibson, everything, obviously some of the QC is horrific. You know, we've had all of them.
Pulling no punches there.
No, I mean, jumping right in. We'll get a beautiful looking guitar. Like, this is amazing, straight from the factory, and like plug in is like, cool. The pickups don't work.
And it has definitely suffered lately with all the things going on and the rush to get guitars to market. So
or this wiring's not quite right, or this nut wasn't cut perfectly, or you know, it's like that still happens.
Sure.
It's not built into the consistent diagram of how they build and produce guitars, though. It's an anomaly, unless you're a company that starts with a G and ends with a Ibsen sometimes. That was a thing for running years. They've gotten better though. They're getting much better. Like,
much better.
They're crushing it. But it was a problem for a while. But then you jump into the magic world too, and this is where I can put like magic versus QC in some ways, because sometimes the magic outweighs the QC. I'm talking in fine instruments there though.
Right.
Like, I've played some of these great boutique guitars that the QC is not the finest in the world.
True.
There might be some routing issues where, like, you know, the pocket doesn't quite fit perfectly on the neck, or like the pickups maybe saddle down in there and there's a little gap that shouldn't be as wide as it is. But it's still the greatest guitar I've maybe ever held in my hands.
Some of that is the nature of handmade things, right? I mean, and you know, I would dare say that some of our sort of dream guitars from the 50s and 60s probably didn't fit, like the pockets, the tolerances. People think they're all these fine handcrafted things. That's not necessarily true. I mean, I've seen some neck pockets where that's, you know, it's definitely not as snug as like a custom shop guitar.
Well, yeah, even like a Fender from, like, you were saying the 50s and the early 60s, it's a mass produced machine that's building guitars, but there's so much handwork in that aspect there wasn't the CNC machine then,
Right,
obviously.
exactly.
It's pin routers and like and cutting, and they still have the same stamping machines for the pick guards. That was one of my favorite parts of watching. This like giant hydraulic looking monster, this green beast that was like making a pick guard. I thought it was crazy to me that like, can't they be done differently? They are, right? Like other places when they're doing the 3-ply, it was cool, man. It's like the hand remover.
God, that would suck. It would suck so bad.
Yes.
I watched, not to get us off topic, but,
We wouldn't want to
in
do
my
that.
in my boredom over the weekend visiting the in-laws, I started watching Hit Monkey on Hulu, the Marvel thing, where like the monkey is the assassin.
I have no idea what you're
Oh
talking
my
about.
God, it's amazing. But there's this one scene where this bad guy, his hand goes into an industrial machine, and it is
Get ruined.
horrific. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's animated, so it's fine. But still, you're just like, oh my God.
Oh,
Anyways,
that hand's not coming back the same.
No,
That's a
no,
gone
that
hand.
hand is gone.
On a side note too, we're still doing that contest on. There's
Yes.
2 things that we got going on. We're giving away a free lunar ice back there. It's a lunar ice, right? Yeah.
Not a big deal.
Yeah.
Small giveaway.
Watch out for the scammers out there. They're on all the giveaways on YouTube right now. There's this guy with doing a WhatsApp thing. We don't do WhatsApp. So,
Nope.
and if you ever ask for money, we don't do that. So, and we have to hit a certain sub count.
That's right.
It's not there yet, unless
true.
you're watching this video years from now. We're
True.
also
All
doing the Next Great American Guitar Builder. That's what all the information for that is on our website. There's a landing page on that if you're interested in submitting anything as well. And that's that on those 2 things.
So there you go. So everyone who messaged me and I was like, I'll find out the details. That's the details. I will send you the link to the details on our website.
But back to guitars and it's sort of a race to the bottom in some ways.
Yeah.
And we were kind of laughing about too, like, because Toman obviously does the Harley Bentons and whatnot. And like, that's like, Toman's a monster.
Sure, they're huge.
In Europe. They're like bigger than Sweetwater.
Behemoth.
Size, they crush you, and they're a great shop too. It'd be funny if like we were trying to sell like Harley Bentons as a smaller shop like type, well with our manufacturers too.
Right.
They would not like that, but Toman's so big the manufacturers just have to kind of take a hike.
Right.
Because these are all sort of copies, but they're copies in of a much lesser quality.
Do you think, is there a danger in the market in general if, and maybe not, maybe this isn't true for guitars because it's such a
Let me see what you
niche sort
say.
of thing. Is it a danger that if so many people are like, oh, well, I just have 15 Harley Bentons instead of a few nice Fenders, Gibsons, whatever, is that going to be the trend we're going to see in the market?
I don't think it's a trend necessarily. I think it's something a lot of cats will do when they first jump in.
Right.
And then they're going to realize, like, usually they realize that there's something else they want, like, that's a little higher quality.
Yeah.
Or they want to be, or maybe something as simple as you want to be part of that historical brand legacy. Like, there's part of it that I like.
You and I have talked about that a lot. There's something about having a Fender guitar or a Gibson guitar, and then somehow that translates sometimes into these really nice, like an Echo part. Feels like it's, in some ways, like it continues that legacy.
Well, because I love Echo Park guitars. That's what I play primarily, except for I just let this young kid, Zach, take my personal one. I'm so upset. But he's playing a show in front of like 10,000 people. It's like, you should play this guitar. It's better than your guitar that doesn't stay in tune.
Yes.
But no, it is like it's funny how that's such a bit the way I feel when I hold these guitars. I feel a connection to something greater than me, and I like that, And then going back just to pure quality of it alone, like Derek was making a funny point off camera. He's like, it's like when you buy a shirt at H&M, it's not a shirt that's going to last. I mean, I am wearing a shirt from H&M right now that I've had for probably 5+ years. But I do buy multiple ones of them, and they're disposable, and I throw them away.
Right.
So I guess they do. I don't know how long they last because I buy like 3 black ones of the same size, and I'll wear them until they start to shrink too much or fall apart.
Yeah.
And then they were $15 when I bought them, so it's not a huge investment.
No.
And they seem to it's doing okay. It's starting to shred a bit at the bottom, but that's what
okay.
shirts do. It's tricky. I like the idea of supporting, but I would pay more for a shirt if I get the same exact shirt and it was $20 and it was built in the USA. I would do that if it's the same exact shirt, because I'm at a point in my life where I could do that. I'm not talking about I can't go and buy if it's gonna be $80 for that same shirt. I'm not gonna do that.
Probably not. Right.
But if we're talking a sort of
a nominal difference.
That's a good word. I was like, what word am I going to choose? I was like,
nominal.
How was it? Diminishable? Nominal. Much better choice. Yeah, I would go with the one that I feel comfortable supporting that economic structure too.
It's true.
You know, I love amps where I can feel like, I was thinking amps, I was thinking Vox all of a sudden. Sorry, my mind went to Vox and Marshalls.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so many angles to look at it from, right? Some of it goes back to that figuring out your enjoyment of a thing versus what you paid for it. You know, we've brought that video up a few times. The economics of enjoyment, I believe.
That was the name of the video.
Because, you know, if you're only playing, because my brain was like, okay, I've heard people say, you know, I get all these sounds. I'm like, but do you really, if you get all these Harley Bentons, are they really the sounds? If you're using a Helix and you're sitting on your couch, maybe they are. If you're in a studio, like making world hit records, maybe not. I don't know.
You can get all the sounds from one guitar,
Right.
pretty much. Like you can have, we've had the battles like, you know, HSS or Nashville Tele versus, you know, yada yadas, but like really one guitar can almost do it all if you know how to shape your tones.
Get close.
You can have a Les Paul, you can have a Strat, you can have a Tele, you can probably make it happen.
It's not going to sound like your Rick 12-string.
You can't do that.
But there is a Rick 12-string Harley Benton. I don't know.
And do you want to sound like a Rick 12 string? I don't particularly want
There's
to.
the question. You might be
That's
doing
not
your
my
Birds
jam.
tribute album. Who knows? No one knows.
Maybe. I mean, I'm working on that right now. It is funny because like we deal with that. Like people will bring into the shop a lot of times. Like, hey man, I just bought these. I want you to check them out. And then like people are like, well, is that like an insulting thing? It's like, it doesn't insult us. We love seeing new guitars always. It's there's nothing personal at that stake. It's tricky if it ends up taking us time to like look over your new guitars and ooh and ah over them. If it's, you know, if our time needs to be spent elsewhere.
Yeah. It's true.
If it's, you know, but we don't mind doing it. I always love seeing a new guitar. It's awesome.
Yes.
And like I've yet to have been thoroughly blown away by any of those guitars at that level though.
Right.
I have been impressed by things like the Spark amp.
Yeah. Of course.
That sort of like the technology and that little tiny compact thing. I was like, we don't sell them, but thumbs up 100% on that thing. The Fender Mustang Micro, that little amp thing that plugs in and it's like in your headphones. That's very impressive.
It's cool.
Would I buy it? I don't know. I don't.
Those are fun and sort of novel things. I think it goes back to you talked about the magic, right? Like I've played some really solid lower tier, whatever you want to call them, Harley Benton level, Squire, you know, those kinds of guitars, right? They were solid, they were great. I would gig with them, but I don't know that I've ever felt that spark of like, oh my God, there's something I cannot quantify. And maybe that's psychological, you know, but I have felt that with a Gibson guitar. I felt that with different, you know, sort of Fenders, not necessarily all custom shops.
And I haven't felt it with really high-end custom pieces sometimes. Gibson, Fender, and PRS.
I have picked up, yeah.
I'm like, well, this is a $6,000 guitar. I don't enjoy this
fine.
as much.
It's fine.
No, I remember doing that with a really high-end hollow body guitar, and then I played it next to a sort of lower-end Gibson. I was like, this Gibson shreds this guitar.
That is true. That does happen. Well, you saw that when you went to buy, what was the Collings electric guitar you went to
Deluxe.
buy that you didn't feel the magic?
I know. Maybe I would now, though. I don't know if I don't, because this was probably 8 years ago when I played it. I was a different player at a different time.
Well, it also could have been that, but for some reason, some guitars don't elicit the magic response, and maybe they do for the next guy. You know what I mean? Like
maybe
it's not.
Your joy is accumulating a lot of different looking things and colorful things, and wanting to have gig bags in cases you have to find a place to store it. Maybe you find pleasure in that. Because I do find pleasure in like anything that's pre like 1970 Fender amps. I want to have it. You know, like I like it,
And that's okay.
and there's some that are just like Dud Village, but I know, and I don't care if it's been modded or it has a different speaker in it. That's
cool.
the joy of Fender. Like I mean, that's part of what's
The legacy, right?
Well,
The history.
and that Fenders are meant to be modded too. That's like these things are working pieces of equipment that do degrade over time. But no, that's my joy is like getting less things that I spend more quality time with instead of having a plethora of things that I can barely touch. That's me.
Interesting perspective.
That's all I got. Let us know what you got in your brain that's much larger than these two put together, most likely.
Tell us why we're wrong about Harley Benton's in the comments. We can't wait. It's going to be great.
I'm not going to read any of those then. You can read those. You can read these.
I'll read them.
This be you.
We're not saying they're bad. We're just bringing up a point. But anyways, if you haven't already, hit like and subscribe. Click that bell so you don't miss videos in the future. Make sure you watch the video so you can be in the running to win the lunar ice. I almost called it the polar ice again. And go check out the website.
Was I calling it the polar ice for a while?
Yeah, we did.
That's why I started doing that.
We messed up with that, but
a long time ago.
It's a long time ago.
A year ago.
Not now. Oh, and don't forget to go check out the website for the guitar build off, the next Great American Builder. Information, it's all there. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. We'll see you next time.